Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In this breakaway session today, we have with us Ms. Sandy Diaz Andrade, who is a psychotherapist and a director at JBCN. She's passionate about merging mainstream psychological processes with her mindfulness. Her enthusiasm and search finds her to be the first therapist from India to receive training in mindfulness-based cognitive therapy from its developer, Zindal Segal, from the University of San Diego, California, USA. She has also received training in acceptance commitment therapy and other mindfulness-based interventions. Her session, Deep Listening, Relational Mindfulness in Education, is surely going to be enlightening and enriching. Please give her a huge round of applause as Ms. Sandy Diaz Andrade commences her session.
All right. So, as we begin our session, which is on deep listening and relational mindfulness in education. Okay. So, I think the morning session made it much easier for all of us and has set the stage to get into this. Because if you look at mindfulness, mindfulness, embedded in mindfulness actually and not separate from it, is being able to relate from a space where I see you clearly and I see the interrelationship between you and me. Not just individually, but also collectively. And as a psychologist and as somebody who most of my day is in terms of listening to people, right? Listening is a key component in which this can be it can just unfold. Okay. And if you really look at it, okay, all of education is relational. What about education is not relational? Yes, you have facts, but the facts are related to how I am in relationship to something. Okay. Whether it is even, studying a microscopic organism, I'm still in relationship with that. And recent research, some of us we are familiar with it, also shows this very act of observation, this very act of being in relationship changes the whole process. So how I'm looking at things changes what is happening. Okay? From what lens I am looking changes the whole nature of things. And if we say that education is all about relationships, how I relate with this, and as a teacher and as an educator, and being in the classroom, how am I in relationship to you? Okay? How are my students in relationship to each other? And how can I build this sense and the quality of this relationship? So since this whole session is on relating from that space, it can't be about me speaking about it. Alright? So we will look at what is listening from experiencing listening. there's no other way we can kind of like know this. So, in getting into a relationship with each other, what that means, right? Just through the simple act of listening. So, what I would invite you all to do is, and also it becomes very difficult for me to relate to you sitting back there. So maybe the first thing that we can do is maybe just come up front, okay? So we are more together. All right. So we will do a short listening exercise, all right? Okay? It's very, very simple. But before that, right, just to be ready to listen, we'll just come in mindful awareness, right? So I see on the board that take 5 steps to mindfulness today, and the first one is reason why this is important to you. So coming to a space of intention that I really want to listen to you. That's the intention, right? I really want to be there, and whatever is going on, just being curious about it, just being open to it, and that's the intention. So just taking time to come into that intention, it's really important. Okay. So I'll just guide you to just be with yourself first and letting your feet be on the ground where you can sense the contact with the ground. Okay? And we'll come into this grounded awareness. And you can take a minute to either close your eyes or let it be open. It doesn't matter. You don't need to always have your eyes closed. Just to orient inwards. In whichever way you are used to doing that. And simply holding the intention of listening fully, being there. To be open and receptive. And then you can open your eyes, you can see the person in front of you. Yeah. And between yourselves, just decide who's going to be A, who's going to be B. Okay. So A's will listen, okay, and don't worry, we will exchange. And as we go on, I'm like, oh, I should have chosen A. And we'll see which one is much simpler, okay? So A's will listen to begin with. And as a listener, you will, it's really not much, you don't have to say anything, you just have to listen, right? Just give full attention to the person in front of you and just listen. The only thing as a listener is that note every time you feel the urge to come in. Okay? You feel the urge to say something. You feel some thought going on in your mind, or you notice a feeling, or you notice something, right? And every time you notice this urge, do nothing. All right? So you want to come in and it's so similar to what you have experienced, you have to say something, don't. Okay. Right? So that's the practice as the listener. As a speaker, you don't have to take care of anything, right? The space is for you, and you can share whatever is there for you right now, and you can talk about that. Right? And your partner is simply here.
As a speaker, you will not be allowed to ask questions.
As the speaker, asking questions of your listener.
You have to avoid questions.
No, as the speaker, you may have a question, you may raise it, and let it be. So as a speaker, you don't have to take care of anything. Okay? But as the listener, even though the speaker has asked this question, then they have the tough task of seeing what's going on for them. Right? Okay? So it's all right. As a speaker, there is no burden, right? And I want you to just use this space to just say whatever is there for you present right now. Okay? And start with that and see where it goes. And just something that we'll just keep in mind, that in this sharing, we'll just maintain confidentiality, which means that I don't share this with others, what I have heard in this encounter, nor do I go up to you later on and say, you know, you were talking about this. Right? So, both things. So we'll just keep that in mind, and we can begin. Okay? I will say that when we can come to a stop. And we'll take just 30 seconds to just pause, right? Where the speaker just notices how was it for them, because you have spoken, and the listener also takes time to just absorb what they have heard. So just checking in with yourself. What's going on for me right now? What am I noticing? And then let's exchange. Okay? So whoever was the speaker becomes the listener becomes the speaker. So just maybe we just share, okay? And if we can have a mic going around. The first question of how was it to be listened to? How was it to be listened to when you were speaking? How was it for you to be listened to?
So when I was speaking and Miss Edelweiss was...
Can everyone hear her?
Yeah. I'm pretty loud.
The mic?
Yeah. So,
Better be loud.
So when I was basically talking and being a teacher, how it is, I love like the attention I was receiving by, and even the acknowledgement that Miss was giving me with, you know, the nods and that, like, yeah, please go on, like, you know, I'm listening to everything that you're saying. It felt really nice at that point. I'm like, I don't know if everyone felt the same, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yes, I also
Yeah.
felt the same.
Yeah.
You want to share something?
That we respond, not just the words are not really necessary always to say I'm with you, right? And also to, like when she says that there was this kind of like attention, and I felt nice without the words that, oh yes, you know what you're saying is really important and I agree with you. All of that, even that might not be so necessary most of the time, right?
I was having this internal conflict. Did I have to be neutral in the conversation? The conversation, supposedly a two-way conversation that was happening. One was a silent person and the other person was speaking. So one was that. And when I spoke, I felt so cathartic because I'd been listening all this while. So when I spoke, it was cathartic, and whatever I had assimilated and synthesized during that initial half of the conversation was, I'm not sure whether it was heading the right way, but it did end up somewhere.
Yes, thank you so much for noticing that, right? That you didn't know quite where this was going, and you know, but okay, you kind of like listened, and then it was cathartic for you to kind of like speak. And something of what she said also got assimilated in that, and something became more of together with, right? Without necessarily the listener coming in with too much.
Yeah, I also felt towards the end of the conversation when I was done talking, I felt very thankful.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of gratitude that usually I don't, land up noticing or appreciating. So towards the end of the conversation after I was done and that catharsis that I felt, I also felt very thankful.
Yes.
About while speaking?
No, yeah, while speaking. How was it to be listened to? Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I felt light, you know, because somehow with us being so busy, somebody is there to listen whatever I can speak without any inhibitions.
Yes.
So I felt very light, and you know, the way she was responding made me feel okay, I can talk whatever I feel like.
Yes.
So that was a very important thing. I think all of us are going through now, that we are hardly heard.
Yeah.
So I felt very light when I was heard.
Right.
Also, when you share something personal, confidential, and when you see compassion in the listener's eyes and her face, it somehow so you know you're not judged by, you're just listened.
Yeah. Thank you very much for these responses coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. So although I already know her quite well, but this exercise just made I could feel a stronger sense of connection just in 1 or 2 minutes of me talking and she listening to me through non-verbal cues. So I think the sense of connection got stronger.
Yes. Yeah. So even if we have known each other for years, just bringing this kind of quality of attention, it's not just simply attention, it's the quality of your attention, just 100% attention. I'm here, you're important, I'm with you, just that much, and just 2-3 minutes felt full. Right. And this point that kind of like came up, that I felt this gratitude, I felt this compassion, I felt this, it also shows us that we don't have to learn empathy. We are wired for empathy. It's within us. Just by virtue of being human, we are wired for empathy. That's how we have survived, right? Our human connections. So, all we need is just coming into this intentional space of being and listening, even if it is for 2-3 minutes. It's not, I have to spend now 1 hour and now you're going to kind of like tell me your whole life story, and I don't have time for that. But I just need to say, how are you? How are you doing? And really mean it. Not how you doing and I'm like rushing through things. Where it's just a habitual response. And this is something we can give each other. This is something we can give to children. And through our being, they know how to do this. They don't need to be taught.
So I was actually, after my speaking bit, I was noticing physiologically what I was feeling. And there was a difference between how I felt after I spoke and how I felt after I listened.
Yes.
And it was weird. After I spoke, right, I was closing my eyes and noticing what was happening in my body, there was, I don't know how to describe it, but when they say focus on the energy, right, your energy, the physical part of you is a small part of your manifestation. You're more, the non-physical energy is there. You can really feel it like buzzing and zooming, and I think there might have even been, my heart rate might have been a little up.
Yeah.
Right? And then after I was done listening, that was not the case. I was very calm, I was feeling good.
Yeah.
But that buzzing energy and the heart rate being up was only after I was done talking.
Yes. Yes. So it also put you in touch with something that was there, that was real, that was meaningful for you. Right? In a very solid sense, because of the quality of attention in the listening. Right? And just this intentionality. And this is the transformative power of listening. What we do, what we say can come later. Yeah? But just otherwise listening it's so habitual. Listen, a whole session on listening, what are we going to be doing? Just listen. Yeah, we do that. We know the importance of that. Right? So it becomes very habitual. You say something, I immediately say something that is there. I have not even heard what you have said. I have not even let you fully finish and complete, because I am running from my past experiences or making connections or saying, I know you would be thinking like this and responding from there. Right? So it's too fast. We need to pause to really take in, to really absorb whole being level, not just intellectually, including the heart, including the body, including everything in our listening. Right? So let's go to the next question. How was it to listen? What did we notice as listeners?
Speaker.
Not as... How was it to be listened to as a speaker? Right?
How was it to listen?
How was it to listen?
Had a lot of urges to
Speak.
a lot of times I felt I should speak, particularly because I'm by nature very talkative. And I'm exactly the kind which falls into that space where you say when somebody talks to me, I go into a parallel and my mind starts running into so many paradigms. So this particular time, because you had prepared us for something like that you have to just listen and you don't have to respond and you don't have to come back to that, I think listening happened more meaningfully.
Yeah.
So I think a big thank you to you, because this is the first time ever I listened.
Yeah.
So that was the experience for me. There were 2-3 times when I wanted to, but since I was not supposed to say, I kind of controlled myself and I continued to listen.
Yes.
So I think it was more focused listening than what I generally do.
Yeah, and thank you for noticing, because actually that's all what you're sharing is all our minds. All our minds do that. It's very natural for the mind to do that, right? To come into some kind of problem solving. It's a good mind, right? It's not that it's the villain, right? But it's very good for other things, not in matters of the heart. We don't need to think through that. We need to feel that.
Yes.
Right? Thank you.
When I started off with the listening part, It was definitely tough, as she pointed out, because you immediately feel that, oh yes, this is something that even I feel, and you want to just butt in and talk. But I also want to say that though it was it just 2 minutes that we did it?
Yeah, maybe about 3 minutes, yeah.
So because that was only the initial part, I thought that was the most amazing thing. That towards the end, it was very comfortable to just listen. It wasn't at all tough. So maybe if it can just be practiced, it's not that tough at all.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
One could hear more than the words.
Yes.
Yeah. Much more of body language noticed.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm felt.
Yes.
Sympathy.
Yeah.
Pauses noticed.
Yes. When we keep ourselves out of the way, what is in front of us becomes visible. If you're, just keep that aside.
It was a very conscious effort at the start, but when you were listening and you get into it, you could get the deeper meaning of what the person was talking.
Yeah, yeah. You could hear different layers, right?
Yes.
Like similarly to what was shared. Yeah, many layers in that.
I expected the things which ma'am said to happen with me because I know for myself I'm not a good listener. So I expected those things to happen and they did happen, but there was something new which I felt, which I did not expect, was a sense of guilt. I found some pressing issues which she talked about and I said, no, I can help her here, I can give something to her.
Thank you.
And there was a sense of guilt in keeping quiet at that time. Serious sense of guilt. I said, no, if I'm not helping, I'm doing something wrong. But I think, as you said, sometimes you don't need to.
Yes, yes. And as we listen to all these different layers coming up, and as we come in from that space, like when we respond, then we are not responding from what's going on within us. We are responding really to the other person, right? So we can ask questions about it. We can just say, oh, this is how you feel about it. And from there, something may emerge which is relevant for the other person and is not our idea or what's the solution to this. Because that's already based on some preconceived idea, as we heard from the morning, and I hope you all can make the connections. Yeah, it's something that has gone past. It's not fresh. It's not new. Right? The newness can come only in this moment, with everything that the past has brought. But it has to arise from here. Otherwise, it's just a rehashing of something that has already happened, something that we already know, and that's not new.
So, something that I realized was that when I was just listening, it was easier for me to sort of sew a story about this person. As to who she is, what is it about her that is valuable, and just in general understand her perspective to things maybe better. Another point in life, if I ever met her and if she did something, I would maybe connect and be able to, okay, that's her perspective, and just it made me more open to that.
Right. Yeah. You got a feel of who she is. Who is this person in front of me? What is this thing in front of me? When we come into this kind of listening, we get a feel of that, the aliveness of that, the fullness of that.
I sense this, there's this perceived attachment to listening as being positive.
Yeah.
Am I to question it?
That listening is positive?
Yeah.
Listening is just listening. Yeah. You're just here, present, fully, heart included.
rarely do that. We rarely do that. I mean, most of the people rarely do that. We rarely do that.
Yes, yes. And it's so easy. Right?
I think it is about emptying oneself. So when you empty yourself, you don't have, you're not cluttered. You
Cleansed.
Like through non-verbal clues, you kind of relay that you are all there for the person.
Yeah.
And so when a person shares, it's not about giving solutions. Yeah. Just doing an active listening helps that person also to kind of order thoughts in their head.
Yes.
And therefore, a lot of the times, solution doesn't have to come from the listener. The speaker, herself or himself, kind of gets the connections and is able to connect the dots.
Yeah. And see how beautifully we can bring this in even into the learning process, even into classrooms, right? If we are really listening to, and asking questions around that, to help the person to listen, to observe, to notice, to come in relationship with that something. Because we know that that innate capacity is there. We just need to allow that to happen.
I think that is where the 30 seconds that you gave us came into play, that pause.
Yeah.
It was more important, not so much when we were listening, but after we spoke.
Yes.
I think that's what something that, when I was doing that activity, even right now, when I'm listening, it's easier for me to collate my thoughts than when I was speaking. And I needed those 30 seconds after speaking to ensure that, yes, okay, this is what I've spoken, and this is what I've given someone, and someone has taken it.
Yes, yes. So this time that we call, and it doesn't require much, but some time for integration, right? So even in the classroom, some time for integration, not one thing and then the next, one thing and then the next, some little time.
So what I felt when I was being listened to is very empowered, because a person is listening. It seemed as though what I'm saying is important.
Yeah.
It means something. And I think that's a very important realization that you need for a child, that what I'm saying is important.
Yes.
And the person who is listening is not interrupting me and giving me their full attention. So who I am and what I'm saying means something to them.
Yes, and that's how, thank you for bringing that in, because this is the very way in which many critical life messages get received. And what are these critical life messages? I am important, I am valuable, I'm loved, I'm capable. This is the way it gets received. And yes, you can also overtly say this, but the way it gets received is through this whole being. Right? I receive what you're saying.
Also giving me a sense of satisfaction.
Yes, yeah. So 3 things that I want to just highlight, and we don't have, just to keep a view on time, is the quality of your attention, right? Is there kindness? Now you can't, I would say, you can't make yourself kind. That's really hard, right? But we are wired for empathy, we know that, so that can be in the background. And we'll come to when I'm not feeling kind and when I'm getting triggered and I cannot be in the space of listening. We all have those experiences. Yes. I don't care what you're going through. Right? I am so triggered right now, I don't want to listen to you. And it could be in a relationship that has gone on for years, especially in our close relationships. I just don't want to listen to you. And somewhere there's this fear, if I really were to listen to you, my heart would open up and then I'd be vulnerable again to you. So a lot of the protection is the guarding. Yeah, it's not that we don't have the ability, we do. That's a given. But a lot of protective systems come in place. Yeah? And so this whole point from the morning of staying with the discomfort makes a lot of sense then. To simply acknowledge truthfully that there's something going on for me that is so strong that I really don't want to come in connection with this person or with this space. Okay. And maybe I listen to myself first and give this kind of listening that really it's okay for this part of me to feel like this. And maybe I need some listening myself, some care myself, and some kindness myself that I give to myself, that it's okay. It's okay for me to feel like this. Because we know in the listening that something, when we give that kind of attention and we say it's really okay, something melts. That's enough most of the time. Okay. So kindness and bringing in some wonder. So let's say we did this, or curiosity. Okay. So let's say we did this for a longer time, we would bring in the responses, and they would be about how do you not make it about what's going on for you and how you need to come in, but really be interested in what you're trying to say, and with a sense of wonder. Right? I'm wondering why you feel like that. I'm wondering how it is for you. Can you tell me more about that? So those responses that come from a sense of wonder, and even in the listening, to bring the sense of wondering together. Wondering together about something, right? So, what about times when we feel we can't listen? How do we navigate that? How do we still remain in relationship? Okay.
You are asking us?
I'm asking, I'm saying, I'm navigating to just see that the first step is to simply notice. Notice that there is disconnection. A moment of disconnection, don't see like it's a relationship where I am disconnected. Even in a very connected relationship, there will be moments of disconnect. Yeah? So do we notice that? And then it's very simple. Just come back in connection. Yeah. Right?
I suppose
So-
you could tell the other person that at this point in time you're not prepared to listen.
That could be a way of taking care of oneself. So how can we take care of ourselves, be kind to ourselves, and include the other? And how can we shift into this and mode? What's going on for me and you? Sometimes we are so focused, especially in the field of education, and I know that because this also is in line with the field that I am in, that we are so focused on others. Yeah, there's a lot of caregiving, right? So we are so focused on looking after others that sometimes we forget to include ourselves in the process. So really listening and something like mindfulness can be really a form of self-care also. as a way of taking care of oneself, of kind of like noticing when is it that I'm not in connection, when is it that maybe sometimes I need to come into a place of kindness for how something in me is feeling. Not all of me, but something in me is feeling something that feels uncomfortable. And how can I increasingly stay in that space, given my capacity, that space of discomfort, just a bit longer. Not too much that it overwhelms me, but just a little bit more. Increase my capacity.
So is it in this noticing itself, therefore you are paying attention to the fact that you are not able to listen? Is it in that itself that dissolves, and therefore you get into the space of listening?
So very often that by itself works, because just in the noticing we are acknowledging with kindness, right? We just acknowledge with kindness. Like this is how it is right now for me, yeah, and that's okay. Just that by itself can not make it such a big issue. Okay, just that by itself throws up possibilities of choice. What can I do here? Either which is supportive to myself or supportive to the other or supportive in this situation. Okay, it comes from there. Skillful action stems from there, right? From this noticing and acknowledgement. But very often, sometimes we can get triggered, and that kind of trigger can have many, many layers that run very, very deep, right? So simply acknowledging, I'm not going to dissolve, right? And we keep taking care of that part, keep taking care of that part. All we need to do is not to get into so much into a habitual reaction mode. It's like when we get triggered, our immediate response is, what are you doing? Right? And so the more we can step back, right? The more we can step back, the more we can see clearly. Okay? So I like to call it as step back so that you can step in. Okay? We are not stepping back into some nice, lovely state of being like Shamatha was described. Equanimity is important so that we can come into deeper relationship. It's not about being in bliss. Yeah? So from there, how can I come into deeper relationship, into deeper connection? How can I inquire from that space? How can I let wisdom unfold from that space? Okay? So, a lot of my work is also influenced by focusing, which is not a mindfulness-based work, but it's so close to it. And the pioneer of focusing, Eugene Gendlin, so he said this thing that you can't smell the soup with your head in it. Yeah? So if you're so caught up in the reactivity, if you're so caught up in the emotion, you can't see what's going on. In order to see what is going on, even that uncomfortable emotion, you need to step back so that you can see it and then step in. Come closer to it. Come closer in relationship to your discomfort, whether it is within, whether it is with another. Yeah. And that may take several times. It's not a one-time thing. And it's not just in one relationship. And we also have the choice that, yes, all of this is good, but maybe not today. And that's an act of kindness to ourselves.
And to the other, because you're being genuine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
Yes.
Is that when you're listening to a person and that person is very angry or very bitter or very vengeful, it is coming. What should you be doing at that point of time?
Okay, can I repeat the question for everyone else, especially behind? Is that if the other person is angry and bitter or vengeful, then what do I do? Do I listen to that?
Or how should I control my, emotions of not reacting?
Yeah. So reaction may happen, and that's okay. You notice it at the point that you notice it. So initially, there's no point in terms of then saying that, why didn't I notice this? I could have done better. That is more of the critical voice, which we all have. Right? And I'll just come back to the question. But this is also very important, that we don't have a distinction when I work with other people. It's done? Okay. The distinction between the critical, the motivating voice, like a coach voice, that's a good voice, that do it, of course you can do it, and a kind voice, which is very, very different. A voice of kindness sounds very different from a coach voice, and the coach voice is good, but the voice of kindness sounds more like, no matter what, we get through to it. Let's see. It's fine, it's going to be okay. You're okay no matter what. Okay? And coming back to that question, and then we will end, is that how do we meet with others who have all of this going on? We have to honor our capacity. If we do not have the capacity to deal with that, then it doesn't make sense to be in that situation. It doesn't serve us, it doesn't serve them. Right? Yeah? And we do what we can. Like the Buddha, when somebody came and started to hurl, all kinds of things towards him, started to say mean things to him, he said, thank you for your gift, but I'm not receiving it. You may want to give it to me, but I have choice here. Whether I want to take that and what I want to do with that. And if I get triggered, then that becomes my responsibility to take care of that trigger, not of you, to take care of that trigger. Yeah, take care of myself. Okay, and we'll end here. And I hope that you all can over lunch, come into this kind of like deeper space of just connecting with whoever and just try it out. Thank you.
What was the reason for grounding our feet?
Okay, the reason for grounding feet is that it's a very nice practice. It helps you to come into the present moment, and you have your feet all the time. So in any situation, whether you're in the classroom, everyone's like, going berserk, you always have your feet to come back to, right? So it's a good orienting way.
Okay, so on behalf of the management of JBCN Education, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Sandy Diaz Andrade for giving us invaluable time and sharing with us some beautiful insights. Thank you very much, ma'am, and please accept this token of appreciation.